Hello, I'm Christian. I am 24 years old and currently reside in Austin, Texas. I relocated here a few years back from a quaint town in Missouri, and I've been adapting to the shift ever since. To be honest, I never imagined I would find myself in a city like this. This place is brimming with vibrant culture, delicious food, captivating music, and a plethora of activities to enjoy. Yet, it can also feel quite daunting. In my quaint little town, life was much more straightforward. You had your circle, your habits, and your environment. However, in this case, it stands apart. I've secured a position as a graphic designer at a tech startup. It's quite acceptable. It's a reasonably well-paying job, allowing me to cover my rent and manage my own needs. However, the role itself is, shall we say, rather lacking in excitement. I'm merely drifting through life. I've found myself in an unusual place for the past few months. I wouldn't label it a crisis, but I suppose one could say I'm experiencing a bit of a slump. I'm at a point in my life where everything seems a bit hazy, making it difficult to discern the path I'm on. The days meld into one another. It's a cycle of work, returning home, grabbing some quick takeout for dinner, perhaps enjoying a beer with a few friends, and then doing it all over again. I once believed I had everything mapped out, but now I find myself questioning that certainty. I often sense that I'm not making any meaningful progress in my life. I'm eager to initiate a transformation, yet I'm uncertain about the best starting point. One of my longtime companions, Peter, resides here as well. He's a few years my junior, yet our friendship dates back to high school. In those days, we spent a great deal of time together. While I wouldn't label us as best friends, we certainly shared a bond that allowed us to enjoy each other's company. We would venture out, enjoy some drinks, engage in video games, or whatever else came to mind. As time passed, we gradually grew distant. We didn't exactly part ways on bad terms. We had drifted apart. He's occupied with his studies and personal matters, while I'm focused on my own pursuits. We'll catch a drink occasionally if our schedules align, but that's the extent of it. It has been several months since we last spent time together. After weeks of feeling trapped in the same old routine, a sudden idea struck me one day. Perhaps I ought to explore yoga. It appeared unexpectedly, to be honest. I wasn't particularly invested in fitness or health or anything like that. I've always maintained a decent level of fitness, but I wouldn't say I'm in the gym daily either. However, yoga? That was quite an experience. I had listened to others discuss it. It brought a sense of balance, allowed for mental clarity, and enhanced both flexibility and strength. It seemed like an endeavor worth exploring. I thought it might be worth a shot, don't you think? It appeared to be an excellent opportunity to disrupt the routine of my everyday existence and perhaps enhance both my physical and mental well-being. Initially, I found myself in doubt. I was completely at a loss for how to begin. I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me at the thought of appearing foolish among a group of seasoned yoga practitioners who likely had mastered every pose. Yet, as I pondered further, it increasingly seemed like the appropriate course of action. I felt the urge to explore uncharted territory. I found myself growing weary of existing on autopilot. So, I took the approach that anyone might take when faced with uncertainty. I searched for it online. I discovered a yoga studio in my vicinity, and they had a month-long membership available at a reasonable cost. It wasn't a significant obligation, and I thought it would be worthwhile to try it out. I registered online, completed the payment for the membership, and arranged my initial class. There was a sense of anticipation within me, eager to discover how my body would respond, while another part of me was intrigued by the potential shifts in my mental landscape. I was wishing it would assist me in clearing my mind, perhaps provide a sort of mental refresh. The class was set for 6 p.m., prompting me to leave work early that day and hurry over. Uncertainty loomed over me, and to be truthful, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. As I stepped into the studio, I was enveloped by the rich aroma of incense and the gentle, soothing melodies that played softly in the background. The atmosphere of the place exuded a sense of tranquility, a stark contrast to the bustling office, where I had toiled away the whole day. Candles flickered on the floor, mats were arranged in neat rows, and a gentle glow enveloped the space. I surveyed my surroundings, sensing a hint of disconnection. It felt like stepping into an entirely different realm, and there I stood, merely attempting to navigate my way without making a fool of myself. I picked up a mat, arranged it neatly, and attempted to appear relaxed as I awaited the beginning of the class. I found myself uncertain about whether to stretch or remain still, yet observing the calm demeanor of those around me led me to choose the latter. I found myself caught between the anxiety of the poses and the overwhelming presence of those around me, who seemed to have it all figured out. As soon as the instructor entered, the atmosphere shifted, and everything became captivating. As soon as the instructor entered, it was as if the atmosphere in the room transformed. My gaze fixed on her, and for a fleeting moment, I questioned my own perception. Indeed, there was no error. At the front of the class stood Madison, Peter's mom, clad in a sleek black athletic ensemble that accentuated her fit physique beautifully. I was familiar with her, not in an intimate sense, but I had encountered her often enough throughout the years to identify her immediately. She possessed a captivating aura that lingered, an innate assurance that set her apart from the rest. In the days when I spent time with Peter, I would catch glimpses of her now and then, perhaps as she walked by their home or when she came to collect him from some place. However, that was quite some time ago, and she hadn't crossed my mind until now. Up until this moment, encountering her in this environment felt distinct. It felt as though my mind required a moment to reset. She was in her early 40s, yet she appeared much younger than that. She possessed a vibrant, lively appearance, reminiscent of someone who maintained her well-being effortlessly. Her long, dark blonde hair was gathered into a tidy ponytail, and her skin radiated a natural glow, unmistakably indicating her time spent in the great outdoors. Yet, it wasn't merely that, there was an undeniable quality in her demeanor, a fluidity in her movements that exuded an effortless elegance. She welcomed the class with a gentle smile, her voice flowing and steady. "Greetings to all, let us pause for a moment and breathe deeply as one." I was still grappling with the reality that this was my instructor, yet I compelled myself to maintain my composure. I had no intention of causing a stir simply because I recognized her. As she surveyed the room, it appeared that I had not yet caught her attention. The class commenced, and I endeavored to keep pace with the proceedings. It began gradually, with basic breathing techniques, gentle stretches, and finding the flow of the routine. Initially, I was acutely conscious of each action I took, anxious that I might falter or draw negative attention to myself. However, as the session progressed, I discovered myself becoming more at ease with it. Madison's voice resonated with calm assurance, leading us through every pose, encouraging us to concentrate on our breath and remain anchored in the present. She glided through the room, subtly refining people's postures, delicately guiding their stances. I make an effort to avoid overthinking it, yet each time she walked past, an unusual sense of anticipation washed over me, as if I were hoping she might acknowledge my presence. About midway through the session, she did. As I found myself immersed in the pose, grappling with my balance, a gentle laugh floated to my ears from nearby. "Believer." I raised my gaze, locking eyes with her. She wore a smile, a mix of surprise and amusement dancing in her eyes. I cleared my throat, attempting to maintain my composure despite the unexpected disruption. "Hello, Madison." She inclined her head just a bit, observing me for a moment. "I was surprised to find you here." "Indeed, I feel the same way." I confessed to my struggle in maintaining my equilibrium. "It seems I'm embarking on a new endeavor." She offered a subtle nod, clearly captivated, yet remained silent. She merely shifted my stance, her hands gently resting on my shoulder, fine-tuning my posture, and then proceeded with the class as though nothing had occurred. Yet my thoughts were in a whirlwind. The remainder of the session passed in a haze. I was keeping up with the actions, yet I wasn't completely present. Occasionally, I found myself stealing glances her way, attempting to make sense of what was unfolding. It caught me off guard. Among all the instructors in this city, the one leading my very first yoga class was Madison. When we wrapped up the class, I felt completely drained. It proved to be much more challenging than I had anticipated, and I could already sense the soreness in my muscles. Individuals began to fold their mats, collect their belongings, and make their way towards the exit. I followed suit, dabbing my face with a towel, attempting to release the tightness in my shoulders. Just as I was on the verge of departing, a hand suddenly grasped my wrist. I turned, and there she was, Madison, standing near, her fingers gently encircling my arm. "Join me for a moment," she said, her tone steady yet assertive. For a brief moment, I paused, but then I gave a nod. She guided me away from the bustling main room, down a brief hallway, toward a more serene part of the studio. The noise of my classmates dwindled as we moved to the side, leaving just the two of us in our own space. In that moment, I sensed that this yoga class was poised to transform my life in an unforeseen manner. She guided me down a more tranquil corridor, distancing us from the bustling yoga studio, as the gentle murmur of conversations gradually diminished into the distance. The room was softly illuminated, with several yoga mats arranged neatly in the corner, and a soothing aroma of essential oils wafting through the atmosphere. Madison pivoted to look at me, her arms crossed and a playful smile dancing on her lips. "I must admit, Christian, your presence tonight caught me off guard," she remarked, her gaze lingering on me for a brief moment. "Has it really been years?" "Indeed, something along those lines." I nodded, my fingers weaving through my hair. "The last time we crossed paths was likely during those days, when Peter and I spent time together in high school." She released a gentle laugh. "You've transformed." "Quite a bit." "At first, I hardly recognized you." I found myself uncertain about how to interpret that, so I simply offered a smile. "Indeed, some time has passed. Individuals mature over time." She nodded, her gaze fixed on me with an intensity that suggested she was scrutinizing every nuance. She reflected on how much you've matured. "You seem transformed, exuding a sense of maturity and confidence." A subtle warmth crept to my cheeks, yet I maintained a calm demeanor. "Thank you, I suppose." She inclined her head just a touch, a mischievous sparkle dancing in her gaze. "What inspired you to explore yoga?" "I don't recall you having that kind of demeanor back in the day." To be honest, I sensed a desire for something fresh. I confessed that I needed something to clear my mind and perhaps improve my physical condition. I thought yoga could be a refreshing shift. Madison's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I find that appealing. Embracing open-mindedness is a valuable quality." She adjusted her stance ever so slightly, her gaze fixed on me, and there was an intriguing quality to her words. Playful and whimsical, yet subtly infused with sincere curiosity. "I must confess," she went on, "your presence here today truly brightened my day. It's always a pleasant surprise to encounter a familiar face, particularly one that catches me off guard." I chuckled quietly, shaking my head, never imagined I could have that sort of impact. "You might find it surprising," she remarked, her tone laced with a familiar amusement, almost teasing. For a fleeting moment, words eluded me. This conversation felt distinct in some way. It was more than a mere exchange between a long-lost acquaintance and the mother of a past friend. It possessed a unique energy, understated yet undeniably present. Before I had the chance to dwell on it, she rested her hand gently on my arm, if only for a moment. "I'm truly pleased you were able to join us, Christian, and I sincerely hope to see you return again." I nodded, forcing down the peculiar blend of emotion swirling within me. "Absolutely, I believe that's the right choice." After a brief exchange of words, I gathered my belongings and made my way out. Yet, as I made my way home, an unsettling sensation lingered, suggesting that the evening had veered into uncharted territory. That night, I lay in bed, gazing at the ceiling, endlessly replaying the conversation in my mind. Did I conjure that up in my mind? Am I overanalyzing this? Was there truly something present? In the following fortnight, I refused to allow those thoughts to deter my return. I participated in roughly 10 additional classes, occasionally in the mornings and at other times in the evenings, yet each and every time, Madison was present. Each moment brought something fresh, a fleeting look, a subtle grin, a secret joke exchanged solely between us. It wasn't merely that she excelled as a teacher. Her presence radiated an energy that transformed the atmosphere of the room whenever she entered. As I continued to see her, I began to uncover a truth I had yet to fully acknowledge within myself. After 2 weeks of yoga classes, it became impossible to overlook. There was an undeniable connection between us, something unarticulated yet profoundly tangible. Each time I entered the studio, it enveloped me. The way Madison's gaze held on to me. Her smile lingered just a moment longer than it needed to. The delicate manner in which she situated herself close to me during the workouts. I wasn't just dreaming it up. Initially, I reassured myself that I was merely overanalyzing the situation. Perhaps she was simply being warm and approachable. Perhaps it was simply her method of ensuring that every one of her students felt at ease. However, it appeared that her behavior varied when interacting with others. As I lingered in her presence, the challenge of overlooking it grew increasingly daunting. That evening, following yet another session, I resolved that I needed to speak up. I could no longer maintain the facade of ignorance. As the majority of the students exited the studio, I took my time, carefully rolling up my mat with a deliberate slowness. Madison stood at the forefront, collecting various pieces of equipment. Her movements were fluid and effortless. I inhaled deeply and approached her with purpose. "Hello, Madison," I remarked, attempting to maintain a laid-back tone. "Could we take a moment to chat?" She glanced up at me, her expression momentarily inscrutable. Then she offered a faint smile. "Absolutely. What thoughts are occupying your mind?" I paused. "Perhaps we could step outside for a moment? Take a brief stroll or do something similar." Her smile widened just a bit, hinting that she had anticipated this moment. "A lovely park is located just a few blocks from here. Shall we take a stroll there?" I gave a slight nod. "Absolutely, that sounds ideal." As we emerged into the twilight, the city whispered softly in the background. The park was nearby, merely a brief stroll down the street. The sidewalks lay largely deserted, with only the sporadic figure of a jogger making their way past, while the streetlights threw elongated shadows across the pavement. In the initial moments, we traversed the path without uttering a word. I was searching for the perfect expression, yet nothing seemed to resonate. What's the best way to approach a topic like this? Ultimately, I chose to be direct. "Madison." I began to steal glances at her. "It seems to me that there's an underlying situation at play among us." She lifted an eyebrow, yet her expression remained unfazed. "I notice how you gaze at me, how your words flow when you speak to me. I'm not sure if I'm overanalyzing, but it seems to me that there's something deeper at play." I exhaled softly. "Is it possible that I'm mistaken?" She released a gentle chuckle, her head shaking slightly. "Christian, you certainly express yourself without reservation, don't you?" I simply shrugged. "I simply can't stand feigning ignorance about what I observe." She eased her pace, glancing forward for a brief moment before shifting her gaze to me. "No, you are correct. You've got quite an eye for detail." I lingered, my heart racing. Then she sighed, as if she had at last chosen to lower the defenses she had been maintaining. A few months ago, she admitted that she had divorced her husband. The breakup wasn't chaotic, yet it certainly had its challenges. To be truthful, I felt somewhat adrift since that time. I remained silent, allowing her to carry on. "Seeing you walk into my class that day took me by surprise. Yet, beyond that, I was stirred by a sensation I hadn't experienced in quite some time." She looked at me once more, her face a canvas of gentle, inscrutable emotions. I observed a self-assured adult male. Not an old acquaintance of Peter's. More than merely a student in my class. Me. I took a deep breath. "Madison." She raised a hand. Please allow me to complete my thoughts. I acknowledged with a nod. She smiled, yet there was a hint of unease beneath the surface. I'm curious about your thoughts on this, and I won't hold it against you if you find it unusual. But truly, I long for the joy of having fun and the sensation of freedom. In your presence, I catch a glimpse of what it means to feel that way again. I was utterly astonished. Not that I hadn't had my suspicions, but hearing her articulate it brought a reality I wasn't ready to confront. I have no expectations from you, Christian, she interjected swiftly. I simply aim to express my truth. I ran my fingers through my hair, attempting to make sense of it all. Thank you for that, Madison. I truly do. However, I believe I require some time to reflect on everything. She nodded, her expression a mystery. Feel free to take as much time as you require. As we continued our walk, the silence enveloped us, transformed from discomfort to a palpable tension that neither of us could dismiss. That evening, I found myself in my apartment, fixated on my phone, thoughts swirling in my head. The dialogue with Madison echoed in my mind repeatedly. Each and every word. Each fleeting look. Each pause in her tone. She had been remarkably candid, completely transparent about her desires. And that complicated matters even further. I couldn't act as if I had misinterpreted the situation. Her intentions were unmistakably laid out. The inquiry was, what was it that I desired? The age gap was notable, yet it was also something that could be navigated without much difficulty. We were both grown-ups. I was 24. She had reached her late 30s. We weren't exactly from entirely separate realms. Her demeanor spoke volumes, the confidence she exuded and the effortless grace she embodied were truly captivating. Those were the qualities that had consistently captivated my interest in others. There was an undeniable quality about her that sent my heart racing, a sensation I hadn't experienced in ages. I swept my fingers through my hair. This could be overlooked. I might feign ignorance about the way she gazed at me. I could continue attending class, acting as if it were merely yoga and nothing beyond that. Or I could explore where this leads. The choice crystallized in my thoughts. Upon reaching that point, I felt an unwavering certainty. After the majority of the students had departed from the yoga class, I took my chance to approach her. Madison was adjusting some mats. She faced away from me. Hey, I spoke with a steady voice. She pivoted, a subtle smile gracing her lips. Hey Christian, you really excelled today. Thank you, I replied, pausing for a brief moment before proceeding. Hey, would it be alright if I got your number? Her smile grew broader, and for just a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of mischief in her eyes. She inclined her head ever so slightly, as though pondering the thought. Yet, it was clear to me that her decision was already set in stone. Absolutely, she replied, extending her hand toward her phone. Share your number, and I'll reach out to you. I passed her my phone, and she swiftly entered her number before returning it to me. There, she remarked, now you have no reason not to message me. I let out a soft laugh. I will ensure that I seize this opportunity fully. That evening, I found myself in my apartment, fixated on her name displayed on my screen. I had no intention of simply firing off a casual text and leaving it at that. No, I aimed to achieve something greater. If I were to embark on this journey, I would ensure it is done properly. Thus, I dedicated the following hours to meticulous planning. I discovered a charming little eatery not far from our homes. It wasn't elaborate, but it exuded a cozy, inviting ambience. Subdued illumination, gentle melodies, secluded seating. It was flawless. I secured a reservation, ensuring a serene location where we could enjoy our time without interruptions. I took the initiative to converse with the staff, inquiring if they might arrange a few additional details. A table adorned with flickering candlelight, vibrant blooms, and a fine bottle of wine eagerly anticipating our arrival. I envisioned something more than a mere casual dinner. I aimed for it to be extraordinary. After all the preparations were complete, I finally sent her a message. Hi Madison, I was curious if you'd be interested in joining me for dinner this Friday at 7. I believe you'll really enjoy this charming spot. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I paused, contemplating the message before finally pressing send. Moments later, my phone buzzed. Madison, that sounds delightful. I would be delighted to. Where could it be? I grinned, swiftly tapping out the information. I can hardly wait to see you there. Friday arrived more quickly than I anticipated. I reached the restaurant ahead of schedule, ensuring that every detail was aligned with my vision. The team arranged the table precisely according to my instructions. Softly glowing candles danced on the table, while a pristine bouquet of white roses graced the center. It may not have been lavish, but it carried a sense of intimacy. At precisely 7 o'clock, Madison entered the room, and upon seeing the arrangement, her eyes widened just a bit. She appeared absolutely breathtaking. She had swapped her typical yoga outfit for a simple yet elegant black dress that accentuated her figure beautifully. Her hair cascaded down, flowing effortlessly over her shoulders, and she exuded the same unwavering confidence as ever. Yet, a gentler nuance lingered in her gaze. As she neared the table, she gave a slight shake of her head, a smile dancing on her lips. Wow, Christian, she remarked, settling into the chair opposite me. This took me by surprise. I nonchalantly shrugged, attempting to maintain my composure. I figured that if we're going to embark on this journey, we should ensure we do it properly. She glanced my way for a brief instant, then let out a gentle laugh. It seems you have a knack for keeping things interesting, don't you? I just smiled. You're completely unaware. The restaurant exuded a cozy, inviting ambience, precisely as I had envisioned. A quaint jazz ensemble performed in the corner, their gentle tunes enveloping the atmosphere. The soft, warm lighting enveloped the room, creating an inviting atmosphere as it danced over the meticulously arranged tables. The ambience was simply ideal for the night ahead. Madison and I engaged in a lengthy conversation. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, as if it were meant to be. Seamless flow, effortless conversation. We exchanged tales, chuckled over little moments, and for the first time I sensed a new perspective on her. Not like my friend's mother. Not in the role of my yoga instructor. Like any individual shaped by her unique experiences, challenges, and aspirations. She let out a soft sigh, swirling the wine in her glass as her gaze met mine. You know, Christian, I haven't experienced a night like this in quite some time, she confessed, her voice more delicate than usual. I tilted my head forward just a bit, feeling that there was additional depth to her thoughts. Indeed? Could you clarify what you mean? She paused for a moment, then offered me a faint, melancholic smile. Engaging in a conversation with another person. Engaging in conversation. Revealing aspects of myself that I typically keep private. I remained silent, allowing her to proceed in her own time. My union, she finally declared. It didn't unfold as I had envisioned. I sought a genuine collaboration, one that is robust and enduring. Yet, at some point in our journey, that slipped away from us. Perhaps it was never truly ours to begin with. She gazed at her hands, her fingers gliding along the edge of her glass. It's difficult to articulate, yet there exists a particular solitude that accompanies a marriage that fails to thrive. One continues to hold on to the belief that transformation is possible, that affection will mend the fractures. Yet there are moments when it simply falls short. I nodded, grasping a deeper understanding than I had anticipated. I had never experienced marriage, yet I understood the sensation of clinging to something destined to fade away. She let out a long, slow breath. I believe that's the reason I felt a connection with you. You stand out. New. Your presence ignites a spark within me, bringing me back to life. And for a fleeting instant, I allowed myself to entertain the thought that perhaps, just perhaps, this could evolve into something greater. I furrowed my brow, anticipating a but on the horizon. Yet she pressed on, validating my anxieties. I understand now that it wouldn't be just to you. You are still in your youth, Christian. The entirety of your future lies before you. Seek out love and create your own family. Don't let yourself be entangled in the scars of another's history. I gazed at her, wrestling with the words she was uttering. Yet, I believed we shared something genuine in this moment. I confessed, a tightness gripping my chest. Her hand glided across the table, settling gently over mine. We do, she said softly, yet not in the manner you might imagine. Disappointment washed over me. Just as I believed we were on the brink of beginning something, she was already bringing it to a close. She gently clasped my hand. Your well-being matters to me, Christian. I truly do. Perhaps what I experienced wasn't truly love. My heart was merely seeking to fill the voids within. I took a deep breath, striving to keep my feelings in check. She offered a gentle smile. I trust this won't lead to any hard feelings. I simply don't wish to cause you any pain. I wish to be someone you cherish. I inhaled deeply before giving a slight nod. I don't harbor any ill feelings towards you. I suppose I didn't see this coming. She released a soft chuckle, yet a hint of sorrow lingered beneath the surface. I didn't either. A moment of quiet lingered before she pressed on. I wish to preserve what we share, however. If you're comfortable with it, I would truly appreciate us remaining close. To forge a friendship. Companions. It wasn't quite what I envisioned, yet what options were available to me? After a brief pause, I managed to conjure a faint smile and gave a nod. Indeed, companions. Looking back 2 years later, I can confidently say that was among the finest choices I have ever made. Madison and I stayed connected. We frequently met up, whether it was for coffee, attending concerts, or simply enjoying each other's company. Our connection deepened, yet it unfolded in a manner I had not originally envisioned. There existed neither expectations nor obligations. A genuine, steadfast bond of friendship. And truly, that sufficed.